in this? Secondly, I do sense as an Indian that India has nuanced its stance from what it was, say, about 2-3 years ago till what is happening in the past 1 year. So what are your observations on these?
The Kyoto Protocol is supposed to expire in 2012 and in terms of its first commitment period. So this is a mistake that many people in the media or in the public have made. They think that the Kyoto Protocol has expired, going to expire. It's not true. When it was made to last for a very long time. But they would have a first period in which to commit to reduce emission by a certain percentage.
Have they done that?
They have done it, and it will finish in 2012, and therefore they will need to enter a second commitment period for new pledges or new commitments on reducing by how many percent. So basically that's it. You need to change a table, and in the new table you will say that from 2013 to 2020, for example, you will reduce your emissions by how much. So basically this is the thing that we expected. Okay, but since then 3 countries have announced that they don't want to take part in this second period. They don't want to enter into a new table, and that's Japan, Russia, and Canada. Okay, so the question is whether the remaining members, Europe, Norway, Switzerland, New Zealand, Australia, whether they will remain in the Kyoto Protocol, or whether they also don't want to enter their commitments into a new table under the protocol. This is a big issue here.
The sense is that they don't want to.
At first, it was sensed that they don't want, but there was such a big uproar among the developing countries because developing countries feel that this is a symbol and the elaboration of the commitment of the developed countries to take the lead in mitigation. And if they don't do it, then in a legally binding way, then what kind of leadership is this? So they are insisting that there be this second period. Now Europe has said, well, we don't mind doing a second period, perhaps, but maybe not in the form of changing the table in a legal way, but perhaps through a declaration or through a decision rather than through an amendment of the Kyoto Protocol. Secondly, they say that they will do the second period on condition that a process begin immediately to negotiate a new treaty altogether, which will come into force in 2020. So this is a European demand, and this is what everybody is talking about. Do countries agree for a new internationally binding treaty and so on?
In your briefing paper, you said there are some implications of this. Because if you have compliances here, it may neutralize compliances there, and those kind of issues are there. Does it favor the developing countries, or does it favor too much?
We are in the middle of implementing this Bali roadmap, 2007. It was agreed that the KP would be concluded, and that in another committee called the LCA, that those who are not in the KP, but who are rich countries like the United States, they would also make a commitment inside the convention because they are members there. And developing countries will also do their part by improving their mitigation actions, So we should try to complete this program by finishing this KP. The US take its commitment here, and the developing countries added mitigation actions be also concluded. In fact, a lot of it has already progressed. The third one, developing countries. We should say, let's give ourselves a timeline and finish it next year. Okay. Once you finish this, then you can start a new process to think about whether we need a new process.
Is that likely to happen?
It should. But unfortunately, it has been made so confusing by the European Union by saying, whilst this is going on, that we start a new process straight away when this one is not completed. There are many things in the LCA committee that is not concluded. The mitigation of other developed countries, the finance, the technology, even what developing countries have to do, is not concluded yet. So we should conclude that. If you don't conclude this and you don't conclude this and you want to launch a new treaty, how do you expect that can be a success if we can't even make a success of this thing that we have, which could be a stepping stone to the later thing?
Could I just touch upon a few words of something else related to why is there so much pressure on, say, the emerging economies like India? India is one of them, China. And you have been a great proponent of saying that India and China are actually still developing countries, and then you've given facts and figures around. Is it because there's pressure also from, say, the least developing countries and from the island states who are aligning with the West because of the adaptation fund and things like that? I mean, we want to get a sense of some of that.
I think there's a lot of confusion as to which country is, is a major economy or a major emitter. India is a big country by population, and because you have a big population, the economy is also big. And your emissions are also big. You are among the top 10 emitting countries in the world. And China is like the number 1, okay? But that's because India and China have very big populations. So naturally, if you add up the emissions of 1.2 billion people, then it's a lot. But if you look at the emissions of each person, on average, it's very small. I think I have the figures there. So you find that India is around 1.3 tons or something like that, which is very low compared to other countries which are 20 tons per capita. And India's GNP per capita is about 1,300. And so India is 130 on the list of 190 countries. You are one of the poorest countries in the world, and it has more poor people than any other country in the world. So on objective grounds, India is a very vulnerable country from a social point of view and also from a climate point of view. So to ask India to take on the same obligations as developed countries is very unfair, because how can you tell India that you have to reduce your emissions when you are 1.3? The United States is 20. So both of you have to reduce by 10%. So it's not fair to say that if somebody is very, very rich and then you want to tax that person, you have to tax that rich person the same way you tax a poor person who hardly has a job. I don't think that is very fair, you know. So in income tax, we tax the rich, and if you are very poor, you don't have to pay any taxes. So here there is a confusion between the big population of India and the fact that you are or not no longer a developing country. I think India is very much a developing country, and it's a low-income developing country, I'm sorry to say. So you should not have to take on the same obligations as the developed countries. So I think this is where the confusion is. And for the European Union to say that I will do my commitment under Kyoto Protocol only if India joins a legally binding treaty in which it has to bind emission reductions is simply unfair, because Europe has already agreed to do the second period of Kyoto Protocol without anybody having to pay them any money, without anybody having to pay any price. So if you agreed to do something, now you're saying you must pay me this only, otherwise I won't do. I think this is something that is just not fair, you know.
Connecting this to what you said earlier about developing countries and the long-term LCA, there are already commitments made by China and India in that, at Copenhagen, that commitments. And there's some calculation about the commitments of the developing countries being actually already more than what the developed countries are there. Could you say a word about that?
There's an interesting study by the Stockholm Environment Institute, and he compared if the developed countries implemented what they pledged in Cancun in terms of reducing their emissions. And meanwhile, many developing countries also pledged, including India, I won't say to reduce, but not to emit at the same rate of growth. Okay, and then you compare the two. This study found that the developing countries, the poorer countries, are doing more than the developed countries in terms of the avoidance of carbon dioxide. Okay, I think it's something like developed countries will be reducing their emissions by about 3 to 4 gigatons, that is billion tons, and the developing countries will be reducing by 5 to 6 gigatons. of carbon dioxide equivalent. Or carbon dioxide, I'm not sure equivalent or carbon dioxide. So this shows that actually in terms of pledges at least, the developing countries are already doing a lot, maybe even doing more than the developed countries. So to say that they are not doing anything and we therefore have to force them to do through, binding them to something, it's not true. They are already doing, or at least they have already promised to do. Okay.
We have a few minutes more.
I think I sort of have to go.
Okay.
One last question.
Okay, one last question. This is about, we are losing the media war. That is, the developing countries are losing the media war, where even ordinary citizens around the country are saying India and China should be taking binding commitments. What do we need to do? Because you're very clear in what your analysis is there out there, but the message is not going out. It's not going out from us, it's not going out from India, it's not going out from China. What's the problem and what do we do?
Well, in Durban, what can be done is for the delegations of developing countries to hold press conferences, to hold side events, to reach out to the NGOs, whether they are from rich or poor countries, and to explain our point of view, in a way that is more convincing. The thing is, our friends from developed countries, they are very used to this. They hold press conferences every day, every 2 days, they go out, they media, they campaign and so on. So we are a little bit shy. It's not in our culture to go out and campaign for our interests and so on. But in this international arena, we may have to do that, because if you don't, then your view does not get across. So I think, firstly, we need to explain to our own people, to our own media, to our own NGOs, this situation, which is not that easy to explain, because, the EU is very clever, so probably they have somebody advising them. If you say, we want a new international treaty that binds all the people who pollute, then everybody say, yeah, because that sounds right. They don't consider what do you mean by the major economies? Is India a major economy? Not in per capita terms, Is Nigeria a major economy? Yes, in Africa, but in per capita terms, it is also poor. So I think we need to explain more, and I think this program you are doing is a step forward in that, and I congratulate you for that.
Thank you very much. Okay.
So this will be on your website, is it?
It will be on our website, and we'll be using it to talk to people in India, civil society.
Very good.